In the hardware kit, you'll find that you have 6 collarless pins. These 4 are for the legs, 2 are for the cross piece. You get these 4 threaded bolts that are for putting the guide rod on. You'll also get 2 cotter pins. These are for the release handles. And finally, you get 2 plastic end caps for the release handles. And this pin is for the box squat seat. So there's different ways to put squat mats together. I'm going to show you how I like to do it. First thing, I like to put the platform upside down like this, and then I like to put the legs in. There's indentations on these legs. That's going to be on the outside, pretty straightforward. That's going to allow you to line up the holes that you're going to use collarless pins for. So I'll bang these 4 legs in pretty quickly. What's amazing about squat mats is we make this in Pennsylvania. You don't need any tools except for a screwdriver, and the only thing that you need to do with the tool is put the guide rod in. But I'm just putting these collarless pins lined up the holes to secure. So the next thing I do is I get the guide rod. Again, this is the only tool you'll need to assemble this. And it's pretty straightforward. You can use those threaded bolts, and there's 4 of them. And yes, you got to do this from the bottom. So once I get the guide rod put on there, I'll flip Squat Max up on its side, with the legs in there. And then I'll just, it's a little easier with 2 people, but 1 person can do this pretty good. Trying to get these, this cross piece lined up sometimes can be a little tricky. There it is, and then all I got to do, those same collarless pins that I use for the legs, I'll put them in to lock the cross piece down. So this is the most challenging part, getting these loading arms in, because the fit is so tight. So this may take some patience. I'm going to show you how to do this though. Again, I like it flipped up on its side. First thing you need to do is you need to go in from the bottom. There's a box here. So I'm going to go into this box. And this triangle pointing to the midline is important. So this triangle is always pointing in. So once I have it inside the box, I have to lift up. I have to literally pull up on this loading arm to give me a little bit more room. And then it pops right in. And then I'm going to get the other. So now I'm going to put the other one in. Same thing, that triangle is going to be pointing to the midline. Remember, this box here, this welded box, I got to get it in there first. So once it's in there, I have to lift up on it. So I'm lifting up on it. That allows me to slide it right in. And then I'm going to lay it there and move on. Just to show you these end caps in the hardware that you saw earlier, they just pop in. Sometimes if they're hard to get in, you might need to, I was able to push this in, but sometimes you might need a mallet to bang it in. Thanks. So once I get those loading arms in, I'm gonna flip it on over. And then here's the next piece. I'm gonna start working on the release arms. So once we have those loading arms in there, you gotta make sure that hole is lined up with the middle hole inside there, if you can see that. So we changed the design recently to give you these beefier arms and a little tighter fit. So it's a little bit more complicated, but look, I'm gonna go through. I have this pointing that way, I'm gonna go through. And then once I get inside there, I'm gonna turn it. And then some people can look in there and actually get a little bit more feedback where you're trying to match that key design. But once you're matched up, you still may have to push it once you're matched up, but then it goes in. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So once we get those release arms in there, this is where those 2 cotter pins come into place. I like to flip it back over on its side because it's easier for me to see in my old age. So I'll just flip it back up. And then it's pretty simple. Literally put that pin through there. Sometimes you might have to lift up, and then this cotter pin goes right in there. Thank you. So if you're going to use 41-inch bands, it's probably best to put them on while it's on its side. So I just like to go in here. I'll hook it on, you know, both band pegs, both the outside band pegs. And then make sure, you got to really make sure you pull these up evenly. And then I'll explain more, but that's how to get the 41-inch bands on there real easy. Thanks. So I put the bands on, I flipped it back over. I didn't cover this piece that comes in the hardware. This just protects the guide rod if you're doing some deadlifts. So this rubber piece just slides over the guide rod, and that's all it is. Thanks. I want to finish out, almost done. I got the bands on there. This PVC pipe is optional. I like it because it makes it a little bit more smooth. But when I'm doing hip thrusts, I'll sometimes remove this because it will move up and down. That's how it's supposed to work. So then the loading pin goes here. Just to show it, the bands that I already put on there, I can literally reach through. I'm gonna put 2 sides on there. So I'm gonna put 2 here, and then 2 of these. And that's on there just to finish this out. The seat is adjustable from 11 to 18 inches. Slides in there, and I showed this with the hardware earlier. You get this this pin that works with it, and then just to show it here, depending on what height you want, slide that in, lock it in place. Great. And lastly, I just want to show the narrow stance overlay. I use the overlay a lot. I have small diameter plates, but just to show it, there's indicators here, these triangles, and there's triangles on this thing. You just have to line them up. And then once they're lined up, it'll just fall right in place. That's the narrow stance overlay. So this is the limiting strap. This actually keeps the loading pin from coming off the guide rod. I don't use this. It's a pain in the ass to go from hip thrust to squats. But for a busy high school gym that's just focusing on squats, it's one good way to do it. But nowadays, the PVC pipe free floats a little bit, so it kind of does the job of what the limiting strap has to do. But it's straightforward. There's hooks here on the loading pin, and there's a hook on the cross piece here. So I literally am going to hook this onto there, and then hook it onto there, and that's the limiting strap. It just prevents it from coming off the guide rod. Thank you.
So you're going to put this end of the bar in through the slot into the bracket first, and then lift this end up. That'll give you a little bit more clearance because of the slant of the flange here. So that'll give you a bit more clearance. And then as you can see, it does drop in and fit in there.
Overthink this. The way this works is obviously, just showed up here, Brian. Obviously, when you go through the platform, if you have that hole lined up, as soon as it hits, you can let it sit there and it just twists. It just twists in. So you want to make contact and then you twist. So the main thing is you're trying to get that keyhole lined up. That hole has to be directly centered. Because as you see, I'm trying to get this directly in that center hole. So the first keyhole, I just got to get it through here. Can you show that point in that direction? So that's pointing in that direction. I'm going to go through, and when I made contact. So now I'm slightly going to turn it to line up with that other keyhole. Boom. That's it. It may take a few times. Don't get frustrated with it, and then it'll work for you. Thanks.